Joining me now to talk more about this, retired U.S. Army Major General William Enyart this morning with us. Thank you, as always. Good to see you. So the Ukrainian president spoke with Biden, as well as the presidents of France and Turkey over the weekend. And this call is coming ahead of today's G7 gathering. Could lead to more sanctions. Is that the right move, more sanctions, and have they worked?
Well, certainly the sanctions have been having an impact on Russia. And I think the more sanctions are put on Russia, the better the potential outcome is. What we have to be concerned about now is the development of the relationship between Russia and Iran. And of course, Iran, like Russia, is an outcast among the nations. And we've certainly placed sanctions on Iran. But nonetheless, they still seem to be able to get parts to build the drones with and continue their aggression in the Middle East region.
And Ukraine has had some success in shooting down the drones, many that have come from Iran. What are the challenges in trying to overcome that task in the war?
Well, the big challenge, of course, is that to knock them down with missiles is a very expensive proposition. Those missiles are very expensive. They're very accurate, but they're expensive. The Russians, typically what the Russians do is they send in a swarm so that it tends to overwhelm the defenses. The anti-aircraft artillery pieces and machine guns are much cheaper to use, but they're less accurate and they don't have the range that the missiles do. The Russians have also been using cruise missiles, old cruise missiles from the 70s that were actually sent back to Russia by the Ukrainians when the Soviet Union collapsed. And the difficulty in those cruise missiles is that they were originally designed for nuclear weapons. So the Ukrainians absolutely have to knock those down because they don't know if it's a nuclear weapon warhead in there or a dummy. So the Russians have been using those both with explosive devices and with dummy warheads as a decoy to attract Ukrainian, or maybe distract is a better word, Ukrainian air defenses so that others get through.
The other thing is you've said that the power grid is a soft target for these drones and other weapons. Why is it so difficult to protect, and what security measures would you like to see in place to try to diminish the attacks on the infrastructure?
Well, it's difficult to protect, Marni, because they're so distributed. You know, you have power stations, power substations all over the place. They have to be distributed in order to supply the power network. So with the number of substations that you have, it's difficult, if not impossible, to put the resources out at every one of those substations. So sooner or later, the Russians are going to take some of them out. It's certainly and as you indicated, I've said they're soft targets, meaning that they're not in a hardened environment. If a weapon, if an explosive device hits them, it can do a lot of damage. And you can't retrofit those into hard capacity. The most you could do is perhaps put some anti-aircraft weaponry. But again, they just don't have adequate numbers of anti-aircraft weaponry to put them at every single substation in the nation.
Many are taking note that Vladimir Putin is breaking with tradition, will not give his usual December address. What do you make of that?
Well, I think Putin doesn't want to face any questions, any hard questions. And the hard questions are starting to come. We've seen the bloggers and we've seen he's actually getting a lot of attacks from his right wing, people who want an even more aggressive attack on Ukraine. He simply doesn't want to face any questions about how his war has gone wrong.
And what about U.S.-Russian relations, specifically after the prisoner swap last week? Can the U.S. be part of brokering a deal if Ukraine is involved in those talks at this point?
Well, certainly the U.S. as a primary arms supplier to Ukraine will have a great deal of influence on the Ukrainian posture. The Biden administration has said all along that there will be no peace without Ukraine at the table. Ukraine has to be part of the negotiations. You know, we don't want a situation like in pre-World War II times where Britain and France forced Czechoslovakia to go along with Hitler's desires. We're not going to do that with Putin. So Ukraine must be part of any negotiations. And sooner or later, the Ukrainians and the Russians will get to a point where there'll be peace. But it may well be, as Mr. Putin says, it may well be later than earlier, absent a rapid collapse of the Russian military.
All right. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.